It's getting late and sirens are beginning to sound as two fire trucks just rolled past and it's getting dark. That's usually my sign to start getting ready to go inside. But before I do, I want to go over some stuff that's been happening in the news. Apparently, Hurricane Helene has strengthened to a Category 4 hurricane now. For hours, and for about a day, it was at a Category 3, and now it has strengthened to a Category 4. Hold on, y'all. Okay, y'all. So there's a lot going on today. It's getting kind of dark. It's like 6:30. The days are getting shorter since it's fall. Usually gets dark here about 8 o'clock, but it's getting dark around 7:30 now. So I'm seeing all these fire trucks and sirens coming all out and stuff. That's my clue to go and get inside. But yeah. So today, we are still kind of monitoring the hurricane down there in Florida, Hurricane Helene. It was sitting at a Category 7 while it was forming in the Gulf of Mexico. It was sitting at a Category 7, and they had already said that that they anticipate that this was going to be a major hurricane, and that it was going to strengthen to a Category 4. And when it sat at the Category 3 for a long time, we was hoping that that it would just stay there or weaken before it made landfall into Florida, because it said it's going to hit like 4 states down there: Florida, the Carolinas, Virginia, I think Mississippi, but anyway, Georgia. They said like 4 governors have already declared state of emergencies in their states, and Florida has issued evacuation orders yesterday or the day before yesterday. So they said they anticipate this to be a Category 4, and it has strengthened to a Category 4 when I checked 3 minutes ago in the news. So pray for the people down there. I think Katrina was a Category 5, but they're saying that this is the largest storm to form out of the Gulf of Mexico this century. And of course, it's going to be the most powerful hurricane to hit the United States this year. So they said this is going to be a catastrophic storm. It's already flooding down there in some cities in Florida already, and I don't think the hurricane has made landfall completely. So yeah, it's about to be a doozy. This is going to be a major storm. They already said they anticipated it the day before yesterday to prepare the people, for what's about to come. I know that in Miami, a couple of times that I visited Miami, if it rained hard for a half a day, it would flood that whole downtown. So Florida's got to be below sea level, like they said New Orleans is, and they also said Houston is deep below, has sunk below sea level. But yeah, pray for the people in Florida. But that was the mayor in New York, the largest city in the country with 8.3 million people, has been indicted today for accepting bribes from the Turkish government and foreign nationals. They said that he took about over $100,000 in cash and gifts such as free travel, plane tickets and stuff, and brought money. They said he secretly solicited these foreign corporations and governments, Turkey mainly. They said he secretly solicited these foreign entities for campaign contributions for his first campaign and his re-election campaign, and they said it went back as far as 2014. Now, this mayor is currently in the midst of a severe migrant crisis up in New York, where they have been handed out free housing, free EBT cards, free cell phones, got these migrants living in 5-star hotels. These migrants are up there wreaking havoc in New York City. causing all kinds of crimes, committing all kinds of rape, prostitution, murder, stabbings, assaults, robberies up there in New York City, and got those people up in New York City just in severe distress up there. So I guess he's too busy taking bribes in order to fix that migrant crisis up there, giving those migrants hundreds of millions of dollars, and got them posted up in 5-star hotels, while New Yorkers are up there struggling to buy groceries, struggling to pay rent. Some of them sleeping on the street, and you taking bribes from foreign governments. And keep in mind, this is a former NYPD captain. Yes, he is a former police officer. That's why I don't trust no politician, y'all. I do not trust no politician. So he refuses to resign. He will not step down. You know, he's had several officials in his administration quit their jobs. I don't know, is it because they were in on it or part of, the bribe taking, or if they just have lost confidence in him and just, jumping off the sinking ship. But a lot of his administration has resigned amidst this investigation. They resigned during the investigation before he was indicted. A lot of them quit. So, yeah, because when it was being investigated, they were asked to turn over a lot of their electronics. So we're going to see how far down the rabbit hole this goes, but it's just severe corruption up there. And it starts at the head in New York City, the mayor. So it's ironic. He was handing out keys to the city, and now he's under federal indictment for taking bribes from foreign governments. And they said this is the first time a sitting mayor in New York has faced criminal charges. I don't know if he's not the first African-American mayor, but still, this man, Eric Adams, is 64 years old. And of course, he ignored the African-American community for the most part. And as soon as he gets in trouble, he runs right to the black community, because when he gave the press conference after he was indicted, where he's declaring his innocence, of course he's surrounded by black people. They usually do that when they get in trouble. They want to go and run back to the black community, and when they need help, they get hemmed up, they be in distress, they need boats or whatever. Anytime they can use us, they run back to us. We accept him with open arms, even though he's been giving the migrants all kind of benefits and support. Didn't do anything for the black community, but he runs right back to the black community when everything falls apart. But anyway, he's facing football numbers, because they indicted him. It's a 5-count indictment for wire fraud, failure to taking money from a foreign government or foreign corporation, fraud, wire fraud, taking money from a foreign corporation, and bribery, I think. Yeah, it's like a 5-count, 57-page indictment. So yeah, he's facing football numbers at 64 years old. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. But also, a hiker fell from, well, this is an experienced hiker, they said, fell from Wilson's Creek. Fell from a mountain range. Wilson's Peak near Telluride, Colorado. He fell off the Rock of Ages. Hold on, y'all. He fell off the Rock of Ages on Wilson's Peak near Telluride, Colorado. This was a 53-year-old man. And he fell like 300 to 400 feet to his death off of a mountain in Telluride, Colorado. This is like the fourth story that I have reported about a person falling off a mountain in Colorado. Now, this second person that fell was climbing a national monument called Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And this person was a 21-year-old young man that they found. Him and his partner was climbing Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And they said he's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, but he was climbing the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. And they said he fell to his death, descending down the monument. And they had to rescue his partner who was with him, climbing the tower with him. And so it took rescuers, I think they said 4 hours. 4 hours to rescue them. So, I always report these stories because these people, when they do that, they are testing God. And Jesus said, you don't put God to the test. They're playing Russian roulette with their lives, chasing a thrill or, chasing an adrenaline rush when they do that. So you're testing God when you do that. And it's no wonder that the last time I made a report, it was a person that fell off a mountain called Devil's Peak. And now this person has fallen off a national monument called Devil's Tower. So that should tell y'all, don't keep doing stuff like that. That thrill seeking, trying to, get it that adrenaline rush so you can, show off on Instagram. Post it on Instagram, post it on social media, you standing on top of a mountain. You playing with your life when you do that. And so that's why I present these reports when people go off into these dangerous activities, playing Russian roulette with their lives pretty much. So it's a 21-year-old and a 53-year-old have died within a 2-3 day period, just thrill seeking, testing God, testing fate. So, and also another thing too that people don't realize is that even when you get stranded, like the partner got stranded, the 21-year-old died, but the partner got stranded. When you go up there, they have to deploy search and rescue teams and helicopters and stuff. It is time consuming because sometimes it could take overnight for them to find bodies or to rescue stranded hikers. It costs money, a lot of money. It's very expensive to organize a rescue team to go out and retrieve these people. And it's dangerous. These people are risking their lives because they have to go up the mountain or the, whatever to rescue these people, or go out in the ocean or whatever to rescue these people. So it's just unnecessary risk on all sides, to have to go and do something like that could be avoided just for a thrill. So yeah, but yeah, that's the two hikers that lost their lives. What else? Says somebody has vandalized a Hindu temple for the second time. This one was in Sacramento, California. Somebody sprayed Hindus go back on the building, and I guess they haven't found who did that at this Hindu temple. But this is the second time that's happened this year. They said somebody also vandalized a Hindu temple somewhere in New York earlier this year. So I wonder what's that about. Israel has neglected a 21-day ceasefire agreement. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they have no knowledge of the agreement, the ceasefire agreement. It was initiated by the United States and several of Israel's allies, but Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the ceasefire deal, and he said they will continue with their war full force. Those were his words, and they are planning on a ground invasion in Lebanon. So Israel, no ceasefire deal is on the table, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's in New York today, matter of fact, giving a speech to the United Nations, I believe. So I'll go back home and follow up with that. The Biden administration has also announced a $36 billion package to Ukraine, a military aid package to Ukraine. They will also be providing Ukraine with long-range missiles. However, they have not lifted the restrictions on how Ukraine can use the long-range missiles. But I'm thinking that once they release the package to Ukraine, then that's when they're going to lift the restrictions and allow Ukraine to use the long-range missiles to strike deep inside of Russia. So we're going to follow that. So $36 billion to Ukraine, and they're going to provide them with more long-range missiles. And I look forward to them. They are going to lift the restrictions and allow Ukraine to strike inside of Russia. So we're going to follow up on that too. So, all right, y'all, it's getting late. It's getting dark. Let me get home. And anything else come up, I will see you guys, and I will talk to you then. So be blessed, y'all, and we will talk again. Bye.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us here on News 3. I'm Pari Cruz. We begin with the weather tonight. Hurricane Helene is getting stronger by the minute as it barrels towards the Florida coast. The storm is now a major Category 4 hurricane and expected to get even stronger by landfall. Our forecaster, Dara Getter, joins us now with the latest forecast and what kind of an impact we can expect here at home. Hi, Dara.
Hi there, Pari. Yeah, we just got that updated. It was just upgraded to a Category 4 a little over half an hour ago, so this is very, very recent. Per the 7 p.m. update, it's still sustaining winds at 130 miles per hour, gusts at 155 miles per hour, and it has picked up a little bit in forward speed, so it's now moving north-northeast at 23 miles per hour toward Florida's Big Bend region, so we'll be monitoring that for it to make landfall this evening. Now, water temperatures out there very, very warm in the mid and even upper 80s, 86, 87, even 88 degrees. So this is giving that fuel to continue strengthening as it continues its path to the north. Now, as we head throughout the rest of this evening, we are expecting landfall at some point near Tallahassee. Then it'll continue its path toward the Tennessee Valley, but still maintaining Category 2 hurricane strength once it's over land. So this is a very large and powerful storm that won't even be weakening likely until it gets into near Atlanta. So as we continue heading out through the rest of the evening, we'll be monitoring here closer to home for the potential for some severe weather tomorrow. It is very large, so those bands are going to be bringing us the threat for a couple of isolated tornadoes as we head throughout the afternoon tomorrow. So it could continue to strengthen. Winds could be 130 miles plus by the end of the afternoon. And then catastrophic damage per the National Hurricane Center is possible. Impacts for us will be a couple of tornadoes. So I'll step you through that hour by hour timeline tomorrow. We'll also talk about round 2 from Helene possible next week and how much sunshine we could see this weekend coming up in your full forecast.
Thank you so much, Dara. Ahead of Hurricane Helene's expected landfall in Florida, state police and the Department of Transportation here in Virginia are preparing for the storm as well. VDOT says crews are ready to respond to any road hazards caused by the storm. They urge drivers to be cautious when on the road. Virginia State Police reminds people to buckle up, slow down, and keep an emergency kit ready. Governor Glenn Youngkin declared a state of emergency for Virginia last night. North Carolina is also under a state of emergency ahead of the storm. Governor Roy Cooper spoke about Hurricane Helene today. Here's part of his message to the Tar Heel State.
Just a few years ago, Tropical Storm Fred shocked our mountain regions with torrential rain, sweeping away homes, bridges, and lives. With Helene, this can happen again.
The state of emergency also allows state leaders to access fuel and critical supplies as needed. It also triggers anti-price gouging rules to control costs for important items like food, water, gas, and generators.
President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine is continuing this diplomatic road trip. He addressed the United Nations twice and is now in Washington, D.C., holding a series of meetings, including with congressional leaders and, importantly, at the White House with President Joe Biden of the United States. And Joe Biden announced the latest military aid to go to Ukraine, which importantly contains a new type of weapon that Ukraine has not had up until this point. It's a precision precision-guided glide bomb, which will be an effective offensive weapon for Ukraine. Importantly, though, it doesn't appear that the United States has given Ukraine permission to use these type of weapons into Russian territory, as has been constantly requested by Ukraine, but it does give them an extra capability. But both the US president and the Ukrainian president today, once again, promising to stick by each other as Ukraine fights against Russia.
Let me be clear. Russia will not prevail in war. Russia will not prevail. Ukraine will prevail, and we'll continue to stand by you every step of the way.
As a whole, we deeply appreciate that Ukraine and America have stood side by side from the very first moments of this terrible Russian invasion. Your determination is incredibly important for us to prevail.
President Zelensky also met with the Democratic candidate for this year's presidential election, that is Vice President Kamala Harris, and she's promised to effectively continue the Biden policy of continuing to support Ukraine. But Ukraine knows that it's potentially in a race against the clock. The Republican candidate, former President Donald Trump, has effectively said that he will cut off funding for Ukraine if he becomes president. He said that he'll be able to end the war within a day, although he hasn't given details of exactly how that would work. Most predict the only way to end that war in that sort of a time frame would be to effectively give up Ukrainian territory to Putin and Russia. We don't know for certain whether or not Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be meeting with former President Trump, but that seems very unlikely. Yesterday, President Trump gave his most harsh criticism of the Ukrainian president and effectively said that he should have been able to do a deal with Putin by now.
Well, we woke up to positive news from Western leaders today that they were confident of reaching a 21-day ceasefire. We heard from Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati, who publicly threw his support behind the ceasefire deal. But then the Israeli government swiftly denied that any sort of agreement was on the table, which baffled diplomats and global leaders, particularly those at the UN General Assembly in New York. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, put out a statement saying that reports that a ceasefire was imminent were false, that he hadn't even responded to the agreement which was brokered by the French and American governments, and that the Israeli army was continuing to attack with full force. But then just a few hours later, what appears to be the real story started to emerge in Israeli and American media, which reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, initially behind the scenes threw his support behind the agreement, but then backtracked after facing political pressure from factions within his own government, including from the Defence Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who publicly threatened to collapse the government if the ceasefire deal was agreed to. This is something that the Prime Minister has been accused of in the past, that is choosing his own political survival over diplomacy. Of course, that's something that he denies. Now that he's in the United States, he may well face pressure from his closest allies, including America, to agree to the deal, but he also might not. So for now, the fighting continues and Israel's bombardment of sites right across Lebanon continues, including in the capital Beirut. The Israeli army today claiming that it managed to take out Hezbollah's aerial commander. So for now, it appears little let up in the fighting.
All new here at 7 o'clock, some tragic news out of San Miguel County. Officials there say a man from New York died while climbing Wilson Peak on Wednesday. According to the sheriff's office, the 54-year-old experienced climber was hiking alone on the Rock of Ages trail. During his ascent, he fell 300 to 400 feet off the mountain. Another person spotted him, immediately called 911. Once a rescue team got there to the scene, he already succumbed to a head injury. They used a helicopter to transport his body to the coroner's office, and the entire mission lasted 4 hours. Still no word on what caused him to fall, but there is an investigation.
Rock climber is killed Sunday night at Devil's Tower National Monument. A release from Devil's Tower says 21-year-old Stuart Philip Porter from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, fell to his death while rappelling the second pitch of El Craco Diablo, and says Hewlett EMS paramedics pronounced Porter dead at the scene. That statement says Porter's climbing partner was stranded and later rescued from the wall of the tower by Devil's Tower Lodge and Buck Wild climbing guides. Contributors to the rock climbing forum, mountainproject.com, note a risk of ropes catching on a ledge while descending that route. The memorial said this is the 7th death on Devil's Tower in its storied rock climbing history.
Breaking news right now, sources telling the Associated Press that Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury, making him the first mayor in New York City history to face an indictment. Good evening. I'm Natasha Verma.
And I'm Steve Lacey. Rumors have been swirling that this was imminent following the federal raids on the homes of members of Mayor Adams' inner circle and the wave of high-level resignations from his administration. We have live Fox 5 coverage tonight. Let's start with Morgan McKay, who joins us now on set with this stunning development. So right now we know the indictment's coming, but we don't know for what. That's what we find out tomorrow, I guess.
Exactly. Now, we know there are at least 4 federal investigations surrounding Mayor Eric Adams right now. But from what I'm hearing from sources is that this indictment could be tied to the federal investigation looking into whether Mayor Eric Adams accepted illegal campaign donations in part from the Turkish government. Now, we first learned about this investigation on November 2nd of last year. You'll remember that the FBI raided the home of his top campaign fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, and Adams at that time was flying to D.C. and he quickly just turned around and came back. Right. But it's still very unclear. We do not know what's inside this indictment. We do not know what charges or if there's multiple charges in this indictment. That indictment will be unsealed, I'm hearing, tomorrow morning. So we'll hopefully learn more there. But we just also recently found out as of this week that the federal investigators have broadened their search and have included other countries such as Israel, South Korea, Uzbekistan, Qatar, and China. Now, we know that Adams has traveled to China at least 7 times. He's traveled to Israel last year. He traveled to Qatar in 2022, I believe. And so he said he has also been to South Korea when he was a state senator. And as far as we know, he has not made a trip to Uzbekistan, but maybe there's something there. Maybe they just saw some sort of piece of information. It's also really unclear if this is tied to any of the other investigations, particularly looking at the NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban.
So we don't know the specifics, but at its face, I mean, this is a stunning development. I mean, it kicks off now an indictment of a mayor for the first time in New York City. What happens next in the process with Mayor Adams?
So this is huge. There's only 2 New York City mayors who have ever resigned in history. That was Jimmy Walker in 1932 and William O'Dyer in 1950. So right now, if Adams doesn't resign, the only person who can remove him from office is Governor Kathy Hochul. If he does decide to resign, then this kicks off a pretty quick process. So the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, would step in as acting mayor, and then they would have an election about within 80 days of when he steps in. And after that, all the candidates would come forward and it would be a ranked choice voting, and there would be no party affiliation. So it would be just an open election because there would be no primaries.
Right. And we have heard a little bit from the mayor tonight, sort of previewing what we think is going to be his likely defense strategy, right?
Exactly. We got a statement from the mayor, and he said, quote, "I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers, that I would be a target, and a target I became. If I am charged charged, I am innocent, and I will fight this with every ounce of my strength and spirit. Now, obviously, they're, reading a little bit between the lines. Something that he's kind of been hinting at, and some people have said out loud, is that he believes in part that he has been targeted by the federal government because of his criticism of the Biden administration when it comes to the migrant crisis. He was one of the most open critics of Biden when it comes to migrant crisis, since New York City has seen over 200,000 migrants come to the city in just the past 2 years. Obviously, that's not exactly what he's saying, of course, out loud, but hopefully we'll hear more from him tomorrow, because another question, too, is when will he surrender to the feds?
That's right. I mean, you're always at City Hall. And over the last few weeks, I mean, really since September 4th, I mean, when the federal investigators seized electronic devices from city's police commissioner, schools chancellor, deputy mayor of public safety, first deputy mayor. I mean, since then, top aides have been investigated by feds. What has been the energy, the feelings at City Hall?
Right now, people have becoming growing increasingly frustrated with the distractions. And they say it's hard to do their job. It's even hard to communicate with the press about something that they want to talk about, some initiative that they want to do, because everyone is just talking about this right now. Now, since, in just the past hour, we have seen just an outpouring of people and lawmakers coming forward, calling on Adams to resign. I think at least 5 more lawmakers on top of the 8 that have already called on him to resign.
AOC being one of them, too?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I know from one of my sources, they were saying that, there was possibly some indication maybe to her that this was coming down. Now, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, he kind of was defending Adams a little bit earlier today when he was asked, because he said, we need Eric Adams to be successful because he is the mayor of New York City. So I don't know if he'll have more comments after this indictment.
Now let's turn our attention to the United States, the so-called land of the free that claims to champion freedom of expression, so much so that hate crimes get a free rein as well. I say this because another temple has been targeted in America. BAPS Swaminarayan Temple in Sacramento, the capital of California. The temple walls were covered with a disturbing message: Hindus go back. This threat was spray painted and the building's water pipes were damaged. This is the second such incident in the last 10 days. Last week, a BAPS temple was targeted in New York. This was just days ahead of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the US. American lawmakers condemned the attack. India, too, sent a strong message. Yet, systemic hate persists in the US. Here's a report.
Another temple has been targeted in the United States, the BAPS Swaminarayan Temple in Sacramento, the capital of California. It happened last night. The temple was vandalized and anti-Hindu messages were spray-painted on the building's walls. The threat said, Hindus go back. Apart from this, the temple's water pipes were damaged. The water supply was cut. An investigation has been launched into this incident, which has sparked anger. There are concerns over the safety of religious minorities in the country, especially as this attack comes amidst a growing trend in the United States. Hindu temples are being vandalized in the country. This is a systematic hate crime against the Hindu community in America. In January this year, a Hindu temple was vandalized in California. It was defaced with anti-India graffiti. On September 17th, less than 10 days ago, another BAPS temple was vandalized, this time in New York. Hate messages were spray-painted on the temple's entrance. They were directed at India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was visiting the US just days later. Indian diplomats demanded strong action against the perpetrators. The vandalism was condemned by US lawmakers, more than 24 of them. Yet the vile act of hate continues. In response to the religious intolerance, this morning the Hindu community came together. They gathered for a prayer ceremony and took comfort in togetherness. They were joined by Stephanie Nguyen, a California State Assembly member, Mayor Bobby Singh Allen, and Police Chief Matthew Tamayo. The prayer meeting was a symbol of unity. But is it enough? Ahead of US elections, hate crimes in the country seem to be going from bad to worse. Congressman Ro Khanna has called these incidents appalling and morally wrong. physician and politician Ami Bera says there is no place for religious bigotry. But the Hindu community wants to see tangible action. The US goes to polls in a couple of weeks. This is the same nation where politics is so polarizing, it's dividing people, where extremism is getting oxygen. And the back-to-back incidents continue to reignite concerns that religious minorities are clearly not as safe in the country as the US claims.